Bam! MC is in the house. What's going on, folks? My name is Justin Garcia, also known as Master Chim, and welcome to the Warrior Stream. I am here every Wednesday at noon Eastern Standard Time, taking a topic deep diving, having a good time while doing it. Before we get into today's content, just a reminder, if you're not getting my free emails, I send them out every morning. I talk about a bunch of stuff that I'm sure if you're following this video, you'd be interested in. And I tend to be a little bit more liberal and, maybe that's not a good word, a little bit more forthcoming, I should say, with my messaging on the emails because I am not beholden to the algorithms of social media. So if you want to get these messages and this type of content for free via email newsletter, it's called the MC letter. You could look at the link in the description, or you could just go to masterchim.com/email and get those emails. Okay. So we got a bunch of guys on already. Right now, I am streaming to my Master Chim official YouTube page, the Justin Garcia Facebook page, and the Master Chim Facebook page. So a couple of different platforms. Let's see who we got here right now. Jesse, what's going on? My man Jesse's here. Good to see you. You're on Saxa. Good to see you. Corey, what's up, brother, man? Aaron, what's up in Canada? Hey, MC, good to see you. Maybe this next year I'm going to have a little one-day-old. Oh, snap. I had no idea. Well, that is amazing. And holy shit, time flies. But that is great to hear. Good luck on that. Congratulations. And I guess I'll hit you with the congrats on the other side of it. That's awesome. Awesome news. Guys making it happen up in Canada. Good to see it. All right. So today we got, and Jamie, my man. That's the other part of that couple. What's up, Jamie? Good to see you. And congratulations are in order for you as well. Right on. All right. So today's topic, all right, be the man they follow. And what was the impetus for me wanting to do this? Well, as is usually the case, I got people that, watch my stuff from around the globe, but in the U.S. right now, there is a presidential campaign that is going on, the presidential cycle, the election cycle that is going on right now. Not that the world isn't privy to what's going on in the U.S., but what I'm seeing right now, usually around this time of the election cycles, is men sort of devolving into this reactionary, emotional, just crazy person. And they do it at a probably more destructive than ever level because of social media, right? We have the ability to connect dysfunctionally with so many people we were never meant to engage with, which is a little counterintuitive for some people. Well, what do you mean? We weren't meant to engage with these people. And, I can connect with people all over the world. Well, listen, it's making people a lot of money. Don't get me wrong. Like, I run a lot of my lead generation strategies off of social media because it's free. It's easy. The overwhelming majority of advertising I do, really lead generation that I do for my businesses, is organic. It's through social media. I write my emails, I make my videos, I do my posts on the various platforms. And that's one of the benefits of social media from a business person's perspective. But from the consumer's perspective, understand, anything that has billions of people on it is not an organic community, right? This is not something that we've evolved engaging. So there's going to be some decadent, deficient, amoral, inconsistent, unethical, like all of these, pathological aspects of human interaction are on full display on social media because at its foundational level, it is unnatural. Now, I'll add to that. Sure, there's always silver linings. There's benefits to these types of connections. I was just talking to Aaron and Jamie, who I've known via social media for years now. But the overwhelming majority of interactions, I think, just incentivize dysfunctional behavior. And one of the things about why it is valuable to be able to make a man emotional from, let's just say, from the platform owners' perspectives, is you're just much easier to control. You're much easier to control when you walk through your days feeling instead of thinking, complaining instead of doing, and you could just look at the state of society right now since social media has come onto the scene. And, you don't need a sociologist to be able to interpret, the metrics that are in front of you. Right. So all that being said, the topic for today is be the man they follow. I have 9, I guess I would say, laws, codes, suggestions, aggressive suggestions of what a man should be doing in the face of his family, in the face of his tribe, the people that rely on him, the people who will benefit from him becoming more valuable himself. 9 laws, and I'm going to go over them. I don't know if this is, I don't think it's in order. I basically spent a session this morning brainstorming and coming up with this list. If I could find my damn pen, I could modify. One of the things I do now when I have my own routine and the things that I do in the morning when I wake up before I let the world in, right? That's the phrase you guys have heard me say. And in my morning routine, which what is typical of my mornings, is I'm practicing my cursive. And because today was Wednesday, I had to prepare a framework for, an outline for today's talk. I decided to just brainstorm on paper. So I have this list, and you know what? I am going to just number them so it appears in countdown form. That's what we're going to do, right? So if I was more organized or had more of a, infrastructure in my business, I would have had this codified on graphics for the screen. But you know what? You get loose leaf paper and pen. That's what you're going to get. Let's start off with number 9. Johnny Groove, what's up, brother man? Just so you clocked in. So number 9, and 9, I guess I got to name these, right? Laws for a man to lead his people. Laws. Do I like laws? I don't know if I like laws here. Maybe we'll call it traits. Maybe we'll call it behaviors, practices. I'm just going to say laws because I already wrote it down. All right. Let's get into it. All right. Monk, what's up, brother man? Good to see you. Number 9, control your time. If you're a man looking to become a leader to the people who rely on you, you must learn to control your time. This is not something that's usually on the list of suggestions for somebody to become an effective leader. Not that it's never on a list, but it's something that I would say certainly people overlook. They're looking for strategies that play more into the dynamics between them and their followers, them and their tribe members, their children, their friends, family, what have you. But this is something that is more of an internal law, an internal standard that one should maintain if the rest are going to fall into line. It doesn't matter how intelligent you are, how sophisticated you are, how valuable or effective you are. If you do not know how to control your time, you are only ever going to produce a fraction of your potential and your worth, which means you are undermining the total benefit that you represent to the people who rely on you, right? So that was number 9, control your time. Number 8, and what do we got here? We got characteristics, virtues. Man, I don't know. I guess I was so obsessed with the list. I never thought about codifying it. I don't know. So we have control your time. I'm going to say rules. That's what I'm going to say. I'm going to say rules. The reason I'm going to say rules, number one, because everybody knows what a fucking rule is, but also, if you've been following me for any amount of time, you know that I am not a rule follower. So by labeling these rules, they become suggestions in a sense, but not something that should bind you, right? So we'll call it 9 rules for a man to lead his people. Okay, so number 9, I like that. We're going with rules. Number 9, control your time. Number 8, and this is a big one, and you're going to hear that a lot, right? I get fired up for each individual one, but this is significant. Be decisive. Number 8 is be decisive. There are few things that will make you appear to be weaker than indecision, than to be the person who's driving the car because you're the one who was picked to drive the car. You're the one that's most capable to drive the car. And then you come to a fork in the road and you stop. Indecision makes the people who designated you the leader question why the fuck you're in the driver's seat if you're not driving. A man should be decisive. Now, here's the thing, and I would say in my experience, this is certainly the case, but I have heard other people, other experts weigh in on this. Your first reaction is usually the best one. And I say that like in quotes, meant metaphorically, but there is some actual linear value in the words that make up that sentiment. Your first reaction is usually the best one. There is a point where when one becomes less decisive, becomes more indecisive, he starts to question the outcome of his decision. And rather than just pushing through and, shit or get off the pot, go this way or that way, at least you find out if it's the wrong way faster, right? Rather than do that, they tend to make the process longer. Well, I have to decide if I should go this way or that way. And what is really just a sort of fear or an aversion to the consequence of choosing incorrectly gets interpreted and presented as, well, I have a sophisticated process to figure this out. There are a lot of people who have fancy ways to be indecisive. If you want your people to follow you, you have to learn how to make a decision, right? I remember the first time I'd ever gone through an Anthony Robbins program. It was like the mid 90s. And it was like one of those, I think it was Personal Power I went through. And in that, he talks about the definition or the etymology, the background, the origin of the word decision, and how the root of it, the CIS, you can think of incision or scissors, being cognates. The root of it is when you make a decision, you are cutting off other options. So it's not so much choosing as it is no longer considering alternatives, cutting those off. So when you make a decision, it is really eliminating the other options. So you are left with one, so your movement can continue, right? If you want to make your leadership seem ambiguous and inconsistent and have people question you, be indecisive. If you want your people to follow you, if you want to present yourself as somebody that they could trust being their leader, learn how to make decisions. Notice make decisions is not be perfect. It's not make the perfect decisions. No, you have to be decisive. This is what is going to convey to individuals that you trust your own ability to move, right? So number 9 was control your time. Number 8, be decisive. Number 7, I'm going to say it. This is a big one. Show no fear. This is where I'll start getting into trouble. All right, this is where the video might start getting demonetized and I get into issues. Show no fear. If you are afraid, you should not show it. Show no fear is not have no fear. Have no fear, easier said than done. We could command the conscious mind, but we could only program the subconscious mind. And the subconscious mind is what's driving that fear response to a lot of stimuli that you wind up engaging. But as a leader, you are being irresponsible if you allow the fear that you're experiencing to be conveyed to the people who are following you. One of the reasons people choose a leader is because it's their job, and it's a little on the nose, but to lead. That is their job. If you are scared and you convey that, how are they supposed to trust you and sort of repress their own doubts, insecurities, and fears? How are they supposed to trust you if you yourself appear to be just as scared? It's not that you are not scared. It's not that you do not have fear. But as a leader, you are irresponsible if you show it, because showing it is communicating your fear to the people who are following you. There's a reason why, like, I do coaching, right? I do coaching for men, and I'm a pressure coach, a mindset coach. I help people with their businesses, their families, their relationships, their confidence, their, all these different things that men that I coach men for. None of them are sort of a technical, consultation or a technical relationship. And like, I'm not helping somebody learn how to hit a baseball. I'm not helping somebody learn, like, I own a jujitsu school. In jujitsu, I teach those technical skills. But the coaching that I do is much more abstract than that. It's built around helping a man become more pressurized or become more resilient to the pressure he engages. But here's the thing about it. And this is what a lot of people, I got to turn this damn phone off because it's going to keep power off. Okay. So a lot of the people that I coach are leaders of their respective tribes. Now, some of those tribes are family tribes. Some of those tribes are employee tribes, or even, client tribes. The reason why these people who are in leadership positions hire somebody like me to coach them is because it would be irresponsible as a leader to turn to those people that are following and expect them to lead the leader as well. This isn't popular, right? This isn't popular. Most people, they think it is somehow virtuous for a man to act like a woman, for a man to act vulnerable and emotional and all these things. Like, no, it's fucking terrible when a man acts that way to the people who are following him, to people outside the tribe. But the most hard-nosed, tough, just crusher type man needs somebody to talk to. Now, the somebody to talk to in the Tribalnomics book that I wrote, link in the description, I talk about the transcendent ally and the transcendent alliance that occurs as a result of engaging this transcendent ally. Embedded in that is a relationship where one aspires to a standard in a way that they cannot diminish it. For a lot of people in leadership positions, the person they talk to is a transcendent ally. It's a god, it's an ancestor, it's an imaginary friend, it's the man in the mirror that they talk to. But everybody needs somebody to talk to. So getting back to this notion of show no fear, if you are afraid, keep it to your fucking self until you are able to convey those fears in a productive way to somebody who has been designated to hear that from you. I remember one of my best memories of my father. South Bronx, 1980. We're in a park. My father was an avid chess player, and we're in a park on Jerome Avenue in the Bronx. And he's playing chess. I'm about 5 years old. I had already learned how to play chess at this age. I had since stopped playing a long time ago. But when I first learned, I was, I think, 4 when I started playing. My father used to go to the park, and every once in a while I would play. But this particular day, I had my little bike, right? My bike, and it had training wheels on it. I'm 5, and I'm riding around in the Bronx. He's playing. At some point, somebody pushes me off my bike and takes it, and I run crying to my dad. And I'm like, Dad, this guy took my bike, whatever. And I remember being scared, first of the guy that took my bike, and then of my dad for a moment, because I didn't know, well, if there was going to be hell to pay for letting a grown fucking man take my bike. And he asked me who took it. And I said, I don't know. It's this guy who's over here. And I've never spoke Spanish. Like, I've never been fluent in Spanish. My father, that was his first language. So he started going around and asking people. And I remember in Spanish. So I didn't understand what they were saying, but I saw how aggressive he was. And some people were sort of passive, when he confronted them. Some people were also aggressive. But I remember being scared. My father brings me across the street. There's an apartment building. And he tells me, in the sort of courtyard of the apartment building, he tells me, stay here. Don't move. I'm like, all right. And he walks into the apartment building. I'm standing there, 5 years old, terrified. I'm terrified because I've never been in a situation like this. I have no control over anything. I don't know if something's going to happen to my dad. I don't know if something's going to happen to me because I'm waiting for my dad, and he just pissed a lot of people off, I think. And here I am across the street just waiting by myself. I don't know what's going to happen. Maybe 10 minutes later, it was probably 3 minutes later, but whatever. A short spell later, my father walks out and he has my bike. That was the first time I looked at my dad like he was a hero. And I remember thinking like he was unstoppable. He was a superhero. Like he could do anything. Years later, he confided in me that he was hoping that somebody didn't fucking shank him or shoot him or something like that. But he's like, there's no fucking way I spent my money on that bike. There's no way I'm letting somebody fucking steal it. And it was really just a matter of pride for him, to the point where maybe he was being a little irrational. But I will say, I never saw him nervous one bit. It wasn't until years later that he confided in me just how scared he was. But he just refused to not have that, lose that bike that day. So, not that I'm going to have a story for every one of these, but that's one of my my favorite stories of my dad growing up. And that is for number 7, show no fear. Number 6 of the 9 rules for a man to lead his people. Number 6, maintain the environment. Maintain the environment. This has nothing to do with carbon dioxide, right? Or fossil fuels or anything like that. Maintain the environment is pretty much, nobody gets to act like an asshole. Nobody gets to walk around monopolizing the energy. Nobody gets to go around treating tribe people, internal tribe, like external tribe. Nobody gets to walk around making up the rules as they go along while receiving the benefits of a tribe that you are a leader of. When we maintain the environment, we let everybody know that they have to be responsible. We let everybody know that some things aren't going to be tolerated. I'm hesitant to use the phrase, but I will. We are responsible to create a safe space for our followers from a position of leadership. When we maintain the environment, all of the best aspects of members of your tribe, measured in how they can contribute to the tribe's mission, are welcome and incentivized. When we do not maintain the environment, we allow the offset anomalous behavior of individuals to create conflict in the environment. That diminishes the overlap of each individual in the tribe to the collective tribe's mission. If you're a dad and you have 5 kids and all of them are teenagers and early 20s, and your 20-year-old son is a crackhead, and you let him live in the house being a crackhead, doing crackhead shit, there's a point where your other children will move. They'll say, I don't want to be here. When your son becomes a crackhead and you tell him, if you're going to be a fucking crackhead, you're not going to be a crackhead in this house. You reinforce to everybody else who lives in the house, that the environment is going to be maintained. So, number 6, maintain the environment. A couple of comments here. Let's just review. So, 9 rules for a man to lead his people. Number 9, control your time. Number 8, be decisive. Number 7, show no fear. And number 6, maintain the environment. What do we got here? What's up, boo boo? This is my wife. She's in Brazil right now. Get your ass home already. This Mr. Mom shit is bullshit. I hope she's still watching. All right. Aaron says, I was going to say rules, but I wasn't sure if it was to Jordan Peterson. You know what? Let's call it rules just so I sort of try to co-op his rules. Jordan Peterson. I used to call him the most miserable man on the internet. I don't call him that anymore. He's now the most wealthy, miserable man on the internet. Evil Monk writes, in the military, a leader that's indecisive gets people killed. Right on. Yep. When in matters of life and death, there's no pause button, right? So absolutely. Thanks for sharing that. Johnny Groob writes, living to higher standards, protecting and providing for your family, staying strong and healthy, staying away from the booze or drugs is something that is rare today. Absolutely. I think people, the men specifically by and large, are incentivized to be vulnerable, to be weak. And because it's incentivized through the benefits that you receive for being that way, it just makes sense that you give it enough time, you go through enough generations of people, and they will eventually forget, what strength actually looks like. Jamie writes, fear is infectious. That guy being openly afraid on the boat heading over to storm the beach in Normandy never made it to the beach in Normandy. It would make cowards of us all. That's right. And, they define courage as movement in the face of fear, right? I define cowardice, or it was first defined by one of my sons years ago, as somebody who's too scared to do his job. And I think what should not be lost in my commentary on fear and showing no fear is that you will absolutely have fear, and it is absolutely normal to have fear. There's an argument that you become dysfunctional physiologically without fear, because how else is your sympathetic nervous system going to be activated? The fight flight, mechanisms of our body. There's a sort of alarm system that allows that to go. And without fear, with that initial response, that concern for your safety, that triggers that, we would be, operating in potentially an unsafe, dangerous environment without the tools that we've been evolved to be able to wield. An example of that deficiency I'll bring up, coaching, MMA guys for as long as I have. I've had a lot of fighters over the years that, you'll hear the phrase in combat sports, he's a slow starter. And I think the way that I've described that, or how I've experienced somebody being what I would call a slow starter, is somebody who doesn't know how to sort of activate his body. He's somebody who is so seemingly calm and stoic that when you see his inability to produce, you realize he's not just calm and stoic, he's actually detached a little bit, and he's looking at his environment like through a screen. And because of that detachment, his sympathetic nervous system isn't activating, which there's a point where that becomes dysfunctional too. But it also allows him to be completely present, right? Aggressively present when that is activated in a fighter. And so when you hear somebody, being labeled a slow starter, in my observation, coaching people for 20 years, that's exactly what winds up happening. Johnny says, all my struggles as a young provider, my kids or wife never knew when we struggled. It was my responsibility. I wasn't looking for validation or a shoulder to cry on. Well, you know what? You're absolutely right, and it's commendable. And I would say to men, There's a concept, you guys, if you've been watching me, know it, the concept of the reachable rung. And the reachable rung is whatever it takes to keep going. Sticking with the metaphor of the ladder, if there's a rung that's out of your reach and you have to keep climbing, you put a rung in between the rung you're on and the one you're trying to go to. And now that rung is reachable. That's one side of the reachable rung. The other side of the concept of the reachable rung is we know that as soon as we keep climbing, at some point we have to let it go. And that is the other side of the difficulty that a lot of men have. Some people never ask for that reachable rung, never pursue that reachable rung. Others ask for it too quickly and never want to let it go. So there is a function zone, right? If you guys aren't familiar with the function zone concept, I've made illustrations. You go on my Instagram. I just made a diagram of it the other day. But there's dysfunction to be found with not enough and too much. And in between is where function is found. And there's obviously a low level function, a high level function that are embedded. But not wanting to get help borders into too sort of averse to showing fear or showing, vulnerability or deficiency or however you want to label it. So it's really finding that sweet spot where you don't ask for any extra help, right? Men should not rely on extra help. And if it's help that you don't need, it's extra. If it's help that you need just because of a deficiency that is your responsibility, it's extra. So there's a rabbit hole to explore on this, but I absolutely agree that, when I'm a husband, a father of 4, I can't always hold it in, admittedly, but I am disgusted whenever anybody who relies on me knows that I'm struggling with something. But the other side of that, like I just said, is I have to have those rituals and those outlets for maintaining that level of function, right? There was a study. There's actually, I think it culminated in a book being written, and it was a lady. And guys, feel free to chime in if you know this story. My memory isn't very impressive. I like to tell people my brain, it's all RAM, no hard drive, right? So, but this lady, she had done a study where she lived as a man because she wanted to explore, and not like, the Transformers like today. This lady was doing this as a social experiment where she lived as a man and wanted to see. Her hypothesis was that men had it easier than women. So she decided to live as a man. She pulled it off. And she had to stop. And I don't know the full duration that she had intended to do this experiment, but about 1.5 years, she had to stop because it was too difficult. And she wrote the book, and when interviewed, was saying that, women have no idea how hard it is being a man. She had no idea until she subjected herself to this experiment. She had no idea how she was going to be treated by women, how the pressures to produce and be accountable for your outcomes was just overbearing at times. And she had no idea. This lady wound up, and I don't know the details of it. She wound up, I think, committing suicide sometime later. But it was a profound insight given the experiment that she subjected herself to. It's a profound insight that she shares as a result of it. If somebody knows that, feel free to write the name in. I forgot the name, but it's really a testament to, I think, what women will never understand about men. And it's this drive to be responsible when nobody is going to make one concession to allow us to escape the accountability of our actions. There's just a pressure. Nowadays, that's becoming compromised with men, right? It's becoming harder. It's becoming more difficult for men to sort of live with that level of accountability because it's so easy to just not live that way, right? I remember back in the day, when the whole independent woman, I don't need no man, that whole bullshit. it's like if that was a T-shirt, you know, and where it said, you know, I don't need no man, on the back of the shirt, it should say in parentheses, you know, smaller font, I just need the government, because that's the other side of that. And I think a lot of the, you know, the latter generation feminists, just they were completely ignorant of that, or just in denial about it. I think now men are falling into that category. It's easier to not have those attributes that we evolved having, to not maintain or cultivate and then maintain the attributes that allowed us to thrive, never mind survive, but thrive as a species. Because now the symptom of surplus is that it's just easier to not have to do that. There are so many easier alternatives. We'll pay more in the long term, but for right now, sure, you know, go, you know, get government money to pay for your food, to pay for your housing, to pay for this. You know, I'm of the mindset, you know, where my politics are concerned, and I don't think this is too much of a deep dive on it, but it's like, yeah, I think that a strong society should have something for people that fall. I don't think it should have a damn thing for people that lay down, though. And that's the difference. And when I talk about having a program for people that fall, it's like, yeah, we should be able to help somebody, you know, pay for a cancer treatment if they don't have the money to pay for a cancer. There are some things that we could do a lot more effectively, but the other side of that coin that cannot be separated is that is for a closed walled tribe. We can't do those things if we're just going to let everybody in. It's just not a way for it to happen. You know, I look at my children. I'll do anything for my children. Anything. Up to and including sacrifice my own life. I wouldn't do that for my neighbor. I wouldn't do that for a stranger. I wouldn't do that for somebody who lives on the other side of the planet. There's a difference. And I think with men, that acknowledgement, the hierarchy of their alliances, and how there's a priority in that hierarchy when it comes to the investment of their resources, that has been thrown on its head lately, you know, because of the surplus of an overbearing government that's just looking to convince you to stop trying to be self-reliant, right? Aaron writes, and I bet a lot of those women's lives end with, I should have had kids, I should have gotten married. You know, we see it time and time again. You know, I happen to have known some women over the years that couldn't have children, right? That's a thing. I think it's stupid to have to include them in this observation we make that women should be looking to have children. Well, some women can't have kids, so obviously I'm not fucking talking about them, you know? It's like, I think men should lift weights. Yeah, but my son was born without arms. Well, obviously your son should kick weights then. I don't know what the fuck you're talking about. Obviously I'm not talking about him, right? So it's like the women who can't have kids, we're not fucking talking about them. But if there's a woman who pursues a career over a family, you know, it's like, listen, I don't wish harm or negativity on anybody that is not my enemy. However, I don't think it's a fucking mystery that the overwhelming majority of these women at some point are going to either outright say I should have had kids, or they're going to sit there and have to continuously delude themselves into thinking that they made the best decision possible. Not my problem. All right. So let's move on. We got some, I'll get back to these comments. You guys are on fire today, but let's get back to the list. What time is it? Oh yeah, I got to get my ass moving. All right. So number 9, control your time. Number 8, be decisive. Number 7, show no fear. Number 6, maintain the environment. Number 5, be aggressively proactive. If you are going to be a leader that inspires his followers to follow, you have to be aggressively proactive. So there's 2 main applications of this idea. Number 1, when somebody's fucking up, you go right up to them and you tell them they're fucking up. You do it direct. You do it referencing what is expected of everybody. You don't personalize it. You allow them to know that, hey, you're doing something that's unacceptable. You nip that shit in the bud. The other side of it, though, is you go and ask somebody if they need help before they ask. If you need somebody struggling, you are going to be aggressively proactive in your endeavor to help them. If somebody has something going on and they may have a deficiency in their ability to convey that to other people, it is your job as a leader to be able to tell, yeah, this guy's got some stuff going on. Let me check in on him. Let me give him a call. Let me run by his house. Let me shoot him a message. Find out if he needs anything. Because sometimes people will absolutely need something, but their ability to convey that is just not a skill that they've ever developed. Right? It's like you have somebody that can't swim. You throw them in the water. That's bad. How do you make it worse? You make them a mute too, right? It's like he's in the water, he's drowning, he can't swim, he's in a fucked up spot, but now he can't talk, he can't yell, he can't scream. Even worse, right? And for some people, that is the predicament they find themselves in. They're in a situation where they need the tribe's help, but they don't have the ability to ask. They don't know how to ask. Well, as a leader, be aggressively proactive. Go and ask what's going on. How could I help you out? What could I do for you? What can the group do for you? All right. So, number 5, be aggressively proactive. Number 4 is an important one. Leave them with more energy. When I start off my days, you heard me use the phrase earlier that I have a series of things that I do before I let the world in. One of the biggest reasons why that is the priority of how I start my mornings is every day to me is like the shake of an Etch-a-Sketch. It's a brand new day filled with opportunities to crush shit. My energy, I try to ramp up as much as I can in the morning. My mindset syncs with that energy that I'm able to cultivate, so that sustains me throughout the day. When you interact with people, one of the things that I never do, and I've said this in other programs and in other applications, we should never look to destroy somebody's energy. Energy is, I mean, I can go down a tirade about energies, like the thing that gives everything substance, life, meaning. It's what everybody seeks out. It's why people, do drugs, why people, some people, they only want to watch comedies. Some people, they go to comedy shows. It's all about this energy that they want. As a leader, if you're somebody who, now, not saying that, listen, sometimes you got to do what you got to do and somebody's energy is irrelevant, when dealing with them. But if you're somebody who allows himself to be associated with diminishing an individual's energy, he just doesn't want to be around you. And if anything is counterproductive as a leader, it's inspiring people to not want to be around you, right? So number 6, no, that's number 4. I'm sorry. Number 4, leave them with more energy. When you have more energy, you're said to be charismatic. You're said to be positive, upbeat, inspirational, motivational, whatever label that you're put on. These are all positive associations that are going to incentivize your followers to continue to follow. You represent a sort of good idea for them, right? And that is number 4. Number 3. All right, we're down to the final 3. Number 3, train them to trust you. Train them to trust you. What do I mean by that? Obviously, there's some overlap between these rules, but the core of each one of them individually is offset from the other. When we train people to trust us, there's 2 main sides to it. Number 1, we have value, right? We have to have value. We have to be worth a shit in order to have somebody value, interacting with us, or valuing recruiting, our assistance in something, valuing our advice on something. So the one part of it is we have to be valuable. The other part is we have to find a way to serve their needs with our value in a way that they can rely upon it. I've said before, I would much rather people respect me than like me. Usually, would you rather be feared or loved? It's like, oh, that's another talk. But when it comes to be respecting or liking, I'd much rather people respect me. When they respect me, and there are some defining of terms in using these terms the way that I am. To respect me means to say that every time you see me, you see the same thing. You see the same identity, the same person. I'm not somebody on Monday that's different on Tuesday and Wednesday. And, here comes Justin. Well, is he in a good mood or a bad mood? They're asking which Justin is it when they say something like that. I want people to trust that I'm going to be consistent, but then trust that consistent identity that they assign to me is also valuable to them. So it's a sort of a multi-part sentiment, this rule. But the rule, number 3, is train them to trust you. We have value that they can rely on. Right? Down to the final two. Number 2, grow more valuable. Now, this is where a lot of men fuck up. This is where professional politicians fuck up. There's a point where men will become almost good enough, valuable enough, capable enough. And then what they do is they divert all of those resources that were being used up until that point to become more valuable. They'll reallocate those resources into just sustaining their level of capability. Progress is not a linear path. Progress is not a linear path. Even the term progress, it can be broken down and in some ways diminished in its value. People, we should always look for progress. Well, again, words mean things. I would say that we should always look to make things more valuable. We should always look to make things optimized. We should always look to grow as individuals. And sometimes growth is not what others would consider to be progress, which is why I would always prioritize growth, because growth is not a linear movement. It is not a linear process. From a leadership point of view, if you find yourself in that position, it's because you have acquired value in the eyes of those that have designated you a leader. And that accumulation of value was rewarded with giving the opportunity to be a leader. But what happens then is many leaders then just look to maintain that leadership. Well, every individual that they are leading is engaged in their own lives and their own paths, their own journeys. These individuals might have problems, might have the need for leadership, advice, consultation, assistance in areas of their life that they didn't have when you were assigned to be the leader, which means they may have new problems once you're already their leader, which means you need to constantly be in pursuit for new solutions. One of the things that people had to figure out in the last 20, 30 years is, okay, what the fuck do we do with kids on the internet? Like, do we let them on the internet? Do we not? There's all these sort of parental settings that you could put on your computer. Like, that was a new problem, right? I guess an older version, an older generation of that problem would be, what books are they allowed to read and when and whatnot. But there are going to be new problems. Well, the leader's job is to sort of stay, keep his boots on the ground, so to speak. So when I ask somebody, if you look at my 24-hour cycle program, right, which is free, link in the description, One of the things that is embedded in every one of my day's frameworks is the improvement aspect of our day. Like, what is it that we are doing every day to grow as an individual? Nowhere is that more important than in the position of being a leader. You got there because you grew to the point where people thought you were going to be valuable as a leader. Don't give that up just because you're sort of sitting on the throne now, so to speak, or now you're in the driver's seat. You don't have to continue to invest in who you are, right? So number 2, grow more valuable. Before we get into the number 1 reason, the number 1 rule for a man to lead his people, let's just go over 9-2, right? So number 9 of the laws, the rules, Jesus Christ, for a man to lead his people. Number 9, control your time. Number 8, be decisive. Number 7, show no fear. Number 6, maintain the environment. Number 5, be aggressively proactive. Number 4, leave them with more energy. Number 3, train them to trust you. And number 2, grow more valuable. So the number 1 rule for a man to lead his people, and if you guys have read Tribalnomics, this should sound familiar. Never become the mission. Never become the mission. It's okay if you don't understand what that means. I'm going to explain. What is one of my older sayings? It's in Tribalnomics. A leader is a compass, not a direction. It is the leader's job to say, I know how to get you there. Do you want me to bring you there? And the followers say yes. And now you lead them to that place. The leader is the compass that is able to tell followers where they are, where they're trying to go, and the path in between the two. When a leader becomes the direction instead of the compass, what he is saying is, you're going to go wherever I go. If I say today we're going to go east, we're all going east. We're the East tribe. But tomorrow I might wake up and go, you know what? We're going to go south. So now everyone thought they were the East tribe, and now they're the South tribe. And as a leader becomes the mission himself, right? It disallows his followers to develop their identity because you're constantly moving what the target is. Let's say I start a vegan club, right? We're all going to not eat animal products. That's what we're going to do. We're going to get the shirts, right? And the shirts are going to be made out of fucking plants, I guess. And everybody's down to be in my vegan club. And then, some time passes, and at the weekly vegan meeting, I go, you know what? We're going to be vegan still, but we're going to eat steaks because I feel like eating steaks. So we're going to be the steak eating vegans now. If I make that decision and with absolutely no consideration for why these people started following me in the first place, then I am becoming the mission. I've designated myself to be the mission. Now, again, worth noting, the title of this talk today is Be the Man They Follow. Sometimes an individual will discover some truth that is revealed to them in their own process, whereby they make a decision that really disincentivizes his existing followers to continue to follow him. If, I own a jiu-jitsu, MMA, martial arts academy, if one day I said, you know what, all we're going to do now is Taekwondo, right? The Olympic sport of Taekwondo. Everybody's going to kick. Everybody's going to do all the things Taekwondo people do. I should expect probably the overwhelming majority of my students to go, thanks for everything. I'll see you later. I didn't sign up to a Taekwondo school. I become tyrannical when I look to pressure them, when I look to force them to ignore who they are just to follow me. Right? Tyrants create traitors. Sometimes those traitors are traitors to themselves. Right? So if I become the mission, I should also understand that, yeah, some of these people are going to go the other way. And that's fine, so long as everybody is doing things voluntarily. But I cannot designate myself the mission and say, hey, we're going to become a Taekwondo school, and then shame and chastise and question people's loyalty and worth and value as a man if they wind up leaving. Or you're just leaving just because I changed it to Taekwondo. And they're like, oh, yeah. So I'm like, see, you're a traitor. Terrible follower. That's a different target, right? It's a different process. It's a different identity. So number one, never become the mission. If you're going to be a man that is going to lead his people, if you're going to be a man that people follow, they have to know what they're signing up for. And if you change, the direction at the 11th hour, don't be surprised when they don't want to follow you anymore, right? So let's go through the list very quickly. These are the 9 rules for a man to lead his people. Number 9, control your time. Number 8, be decisive. Number 7, show no fear. Number 6, maintain the environment. Number 5, be aggressively proactive. Number 4, leave them with more energy. Number 3, train them to trust you. Number 2, grow more valuable. And number 1, never become the mission. You guys, let me know. Got a minute or two. Let me see. We got some. All right. You're on Sax. It says, walk your talk and be consistent. Words are nothing without actions. Trust means nothing if you can't be stable and consistent. I absolutely agree. Jamie says, cancer grows. You are absolutely right. When it's time for them to go, they got to go. Yarn Saxa says, mean what you say what you mean. If you don't mean it, don't say it. Words lose value to me when there is no follow through as a leader. Provide solutions, not a fancy parrot speech. Walk that talk. I could not agree more. And I think one of the issues with, let's just take the example of social media. You'll have these individuals who are perceived to be very valuable in their content. And when you look at, sort of behind the curtain at these individuals' lives, it's very inconsistent with the things that they espouse. And the thing is, not that, their life isn't perfect. It's that there's a curtain that is all hidden, from their audience too. So I don't even know if that was proper English, but you understand what I'm saying. There are individuals out there who they will make sure they reduce as much as possible any perceived offset in the eyes of their audience. And that is how they're able to basically influence more people. If people knew too much about any individual, they would start falling by the wayside, right? I remember, and I've used this as an example before. I don't know if this was the 90s, the 80s, whatever, but there was a study showing or some evidence that the overwhelming majority of sex toys, adult toys, were sold to zip codes in the most conservative religious area codes, or zip codes rather, of the country. So all like the Bible Belt people, the super Christian people, like they're the ones who were disproportionately buying the adult toys. And people were like, hypocrisy, see, they're hypocrites, whatever. And I never, like, that was never my reaction. My whole thing was, well, yeah, it's like they're doing it in their home. One of the problems with the decadent society that we're living in right now is all of those things that used to be held behind the curtain of privacy are now put out for everybody to see. And society has become more dysfunctional as a result. So I do think there is something to be said for maintaining the integrity of your identity in the face of your followers. But what happens with a lot of people that I would criticize online specifically, you'll see this, is they reduce their identity to fit the expectations of the people that they're attempting to lead, right? Everybody's playing it off like they got a perfect life, and they don't. Everybody's playing it off like they have the answers, and they don't. There's something to be said for an individual who is helping men and women get along in marriages, and he's on his third marriage, or the expert on how we should parent our kids who has no kids. It's not that they can't have an opinion. I mean, you could be a great basketball coach without having ever played in the NBA, and a football coach and all these other things. There is something where you could transfer, information that you've collected, and found valuable to be able to pass it on. There are MMA coaches who have never fought MMA, and I could sit here and criticize that, but I also have to acknowledge that if they have information that they've given their fighters and that has helped their fighters win fights, who am I to say it's useless, right? Or it's not consistent. So my whole thing is really an argument of consistency, right? Aaron writes, I went through a vegan phase, but steak was literally my weak spot, which is why I can never actually call myself vegan, even if everything else was but steak, right? We call that vegan plus, right? Vegan plus, which sounds much better than steak minus, right? So you are vegan plus. Danny, what's up, brother, man? Good to see you. Hope all is well. Haven't seen you in a while. Right on. All right, guys, let's end it there. That was a fun talk. I hope you guys enjoyed it. Just a reminder, if you guys are not getting my emails, they're free every morning. The link is in the description, or you could just go to masterchim.com/email. There's a whole bunch of other links down in the description that you can check out. But the email, that's the big one. You got to get on the email list. If you are getting my emails and you're enjoying them, always feel free to reply and send me a message. I read and respond to every reply that I get, not like bots and shit, but everything that you guys send to me, I appreciate. Reply, or if you think it has value, send it to people you know. I'm always trying to build my list. One of the things about doing business online when you are somebody who deals with the topics that I do is you never know when they're going to try and pull the rug out from under you. My email list is how I maintain the integrity of my business. All right. So I appreciate you guys for hanging out with me. I had a good time. I hope you did too. I will see you guys next week. And as always, brothers and sisters, pressure to power.